So you gotta pull the trigger, even if it's just a few bucks.
That's good. And who are your favorite, when we look at all the investment advisories out there? I mean, I obviously prefer on a mutual fund side, this is not an investment advisory. I like Ariel Investments based in
Yes,
Chicago, Black owned asset
yes.
management company. But are there any investment and like advisory platforms that you prefer over the others? Do you know any Black owned ones or where there's
Uh,
senior leaders who are
I don't
African
know any
American?
Black-owned platforms, but you mentioned
Okay.
one of my favorite friends in the world, John Rogers.
Yeah.
If you just read everything that comes out of Ariel and you invest in Ariel's products, you're going to be okay.
Yeah.
I do, you're from Boston. I do like Fidelity. They have a very simple platform where you can put the money in, you can transfer it from your bank, you can invest in stocks,
Hmm.
you can really
I
start
use
to
Fidelity.
work on it. Yeah. So, there's going to be some stocks that you want to hold for a long, long time. And then there's some, as you learn more about investing, you'll say, ooh, Prudential is really, really cheap right now. I see it's been trading at like 100 for a long, long time. Maybe I'll buy one or two shares and see what happens. And then the thrill of being in the game takes you to another level. When you open up the paper or look online and see that your stock has gone up or gone down, it's it's like the difference between watching basketball and playing it.
Come on.
Hmm.
The last dance. Let's
Yeah,
apply it to real life, guys.
that's right. Are you sitting at the club watching people dance, or are you out on the floor doing it with everybody else, even if you got to do it by yourself, right?
Uncle Tony's out here throwing shade. He's throwing shade. Because y'all know you spent too much time at the club. Come on.
Well,
Wake up.
we all go through that phase. Trust me.
True. And so, yeah, okay. So when you first got started off in investing, you've seen so much. And I think it's so important to read, right? To actually know, the right form, just like in basketball or any other sport, you have to know the right technique. And
Right.
that comes from learning from others. Are there any books that you recommend us reading or people
Oh
who have been
yeah.
really influential, especially people of color? Because I think one thing that's important, even though we can learn from anybody,
Yeah.
I think it's important to have that that Serena Williams effect or that Tiger Woods effect. Because when you don't always see yourself in a space, it's important to see yourself just to
Yeah.
know, hey, you can do this. You can do this just as good as anybody else. You can do this much better than anybody else.
Right. So you remind me of a book. So the first book I want everybody to read is called Rich Dad Poor Dad by Robert
Robert.
Kiyosaki, and it basically says, look, if you've got a job, that's cool, but have your hustle and work that. That's key. That was a big book for me. But there's another book that I read a long time ago that I forgot about. It's called Why Should White Guys Have All the Fun?
Yes, Reginald Lewis.
Thank you. I was trying to think of the last
Yes.
name. That was my hero when I was coming up in the investment space. Now, his attitude, his swag, his approach, his I'm as good as everybody else, his I'm enough, deal with me attitude really, really was inspirational to me. And I would say out of all the books that had Black people being successful, that was perhaps the most influential to me.
That's good.
Mhm.
And then anything on a global stage, because I really want just our community to be aware of the global opportunity that's out there. And one thing I love about Ariel Investments is just the diversity of their team. It's
Mhm.
not just it's just people of color. They understand just where the world's going and just the power of perspective. And so are there any just global leaders, who you've looked up to, people who are, whether they're minorities or not, but just have had a global mindset that's really been powerful and effective in their arena?
Yeah, this is going to sound a little trite, but I'm a big fan of Richard Branson,
Mm,
and his autobiography was very interesting from the perspective of he was, I'm a big fan of people who are who they are, regardless of
yeah.
what everybody else says. And Richard Branson was and is that guy who's like, hey, I don't care. I think I can get this done. Let's round some folks up and have some fun and see what happens. So Richard Branson to me is a guy who I would love, one of the few people on this planet who I would pay a lot of money to have dinner with.
Wow. That says a lot.
I've been fortunate to have dinner with some very amazing Black people in my life. I had lunch with John Johnson at his offices
Wow.
in Ebony a long time ago. I've had dinner with John Rogers. He's a friend of mine. So, you just want to try and up the people who you resonate with. And, you just got to not spend less time with those folks who are not going where you're going.
Come on. Say that again. So I got the books. We talked about managing relationships. Oh, okay. This is a big thing because, our vision here at Student Dream is to create Black wealth. We hear about the wealth gap all the time. People often talk
Yeah.
about the problem that the average African-American household has 16 times less net worth than the average white household. And it's important to know the problem, but we are solution
Yes.
oriented, right? And Student Dream is the first solution. We have more solutions coming, but I'd love to hear from you. How would you, if you were to give a grade, Professor Wilkins hat on, of the state of Black wealth, right? What grade would you give it? And how can we essentially tutor ourselves to become A+?
Right. Okay. So I always look at things from the broad historical perspective.
Mm-hmm.
I know people complain about Black wealth all the time. I'm going to give us a B-. I'll give us a B- because the news media and human nature is to bemoan the things that are going wrong, the things that are bad. But I meet so many Black people who are trying to buy Black, who have a hustle, I'm working with an organization now where there are 47 Black entrepreneurs, and they are all solid and nobody's ever heard of them. And you won't hear of them until they blow up to a certain level. The progress has a habit of covering its tracks. So we don't think about our relatives who are teachers, lawyers, doctors, students, working in some job in tech we don't even know. We think about the ones that are not doing very well. Why don't they get themselves together? And all of our minds tend to think about that. But I think we've got more people. My experience is there are more people doing things, trying to make things happen, buying Black, making choices. For the last 3 or 4 years, we only do Christmas. We only buy Black for Christmas. It might be a car,
Wow.
it might be some shea butter from a lady on the corner, but we only buy Black for Christmas. And I think if you kind of get again into that habit, helping, supporting, even in this pandemic, we go to Black restaurants and order out. So if you get in that habit, those dollars start to recycle. Investing your money with Ariel is at the top end of that kind of thing. So it's a habit. What are you trying to do? What are you thinking about? Who are you hanging with? Who are you supporting? Who are you shedding? That has to be like breathing in and out every day to improve your muscles. Like if you're trying to be a better dancer, singer, athlete, person, you have to practice at it and think about it all the time. So I think we're in improving shape, but I think a lot of people still like to complain about what we don't have as opposed to what we do. And as I mentioned, if you travel, if you have a passport, you'll find, I have found, that there is no better place on the planet to be a Black person.
Wow.
Nema, I have told people many times when they tell me it's so hard to be a Black man in America, I'm like, I agree with you. You're absolutely right. But the minute you find any country, anywhere on this planet where it's better, I'll buy tickets for both of us to go move there. So you really have to look at it in a bigger picture. If you don't have a passport, you really have a tough time believing that. But you can go to almost any country. And when you come back to the United States, you'd be like, you know what? Let me see what I can do here.
I love it. And speaking of other countries, one thing that I really have my eye on, and one thing that we're going to start featuring a lot more of, is just the Africa opportunity.
Yeah.
Huge. I'm like, when I look at some of the way that news outlets are covered in Africa, specifically financial news outlets, it's so low. It's just such a huge opportunity. Have you been, looking at that as an emerging market? Is there anything that
Yes.
kind of sticks out to you, whether it's entrepreneurs, technologists, markets, industries? Like, just key us in, give people a sample of
Right.
this huge opportunity there.
So I have a couple of buddies over my time who have moved to Africa and are still in Africa and will never come back. But I would say that I think, I'm sorry, Siri is trying to talk. I would say that Africa is just like investing. If you're young and you have the opportunity to go and live in Africa, do it. Rwanda is apparently dying for Americans to come over and help that country going. Nigeria, Kenya, the Gambia, Ghana, all those Eastern Central African countries. Look, if you're 23, 24, 25 years old and you don't have a house and a mortgage and all this other stuff, a family and little rugrats at home, take a couple of years and go to Africa. Just pack up and say, I'm going to go. Because just like investing, you might put a couple of dollars in Ariel and see what happens. You might buy a couple of stocks on Fidelity. Once you do that, the level of experience grows so fast. You're so immersed. The Chinese say, and there's a Chinese saying, this is, if I tell you, you'll forget. If I show you, you'll remember. But if I involve you, you'll get it. Get involved. Move to Africa. Say you're going to be there for 6 months. See what happens. And spend 6 months trying to figure out what the story is, because I think it is an amazing opportunity. And one of the things in my career, I started working in Detroit. I lost my job in Detroit. I didn't stay in Detroit waiting for things to get better. I moved to Atlanta. I moved back to Chicago. I think many people are too afraid to move out of what's comfortable to find something that might be better. And, I think if I were 25, 26 years old and didn't have a job and was trying to figure out what to do after this pandemic, I might pick up, if I had $5,000, $6,000, you know what, I'm going to spend all this money and go to Africa until it's, buy a round trip ticket. I'm going to Africa and see how long I can be there and then come back. And trust me, if you decide you're going to go to Africa, you will start thinking of friends and neighbors and cousins and classmates and frat and sorority friends who have contacts over there. And you might be surprised.
Wow.
So you got to try.
Yeah. And you guys watching, we're going to be sharing a lot more content just about, the opportunities in Africa as a continent, specifically Nigeria, Kenya, Uganda, Rwanda. There's a lot that we'll be highlighting more and more of, because we have to start thinking globally. And when you think about investing, you want to get in when not everybody's in the market and when costs are low, and there's just huge opportunities. So we'll share more about that. But if there's anything particular you want us to highlight about investing in Africa, make sure you let us know in the comments section below.
I would say one thing about Africa,
please.
My opinion is, if you're a young person listening to this, don't invest in Africa from the United States. Please don't. If you're going to spend $5,000 or $6,000, go to Africa. Don't invest in anything from here in Africa. The experience will be that much different.
That's so good. And, one thing that just stands out to me, Mr. Wilkins, is just, swag on a trillion. Swag on a trillion. And, I've worked with so many incredible people just from all around the world. But when I think specifically about my experience working with other Black men and women, I found we have a confidence issue, even in my own life. There's been, in other areas we're confident, but then oftentimes when I see in the corporate world, the startup world, public sector, that there's a little lack of confidence in our abilities. How have you built your confidence over the last, 20 years of working? And what would be your advice to just a lot of, Black men and women who are even, in their 30s, 40s listening to this, who just lack that, they don't lack the ability, like they're skilled, they're gifted, they're experienced, but they lack that confidence.
Yeah. This gets back to the people who you hang with. Okay. I can't tell you how many times I did something because I was in touch with somebody and I looked at them and went, well, shoot, if she can do it, I know I can. Right. And if I didn't see somebody out there who I could relate to and say, wow, they did that with that. I know I can do it. If that wasn't the case, then I would ask myself, okay, so if I do this, am I going to go to the hospital? Am I going to go to jail? Am I going to go to the morgue? Am I going to go crazy, or am I going to go broke if I do this?
Hmm.
If the answer to all 5 of those is no, I'm going to give it a
That's
shot.
good. That's good.
I'm going to give it a shot. Keep me out of the jail, keep me out of the morgue, keep me out of the crazy house, keep me out of, hospital. And if none of that's a possibility, yes, I am going to give it a shot. I will
Give it a
ask.
shot.
I tell people, look, if you haven't heard no and you haven't failed, you haven't tried enough.
Mm.
So, I mean, you got to think about what's the worst that can happen. And most people don't. Most people talk themselves out of stuff before they even give it a shot. I've had people tell me, well, I know I need a PhD to go after that job. So how do you know that?
Hmm.
Who do you know who can tell you what you need? Well, I just imagine. Well, no, imagine doesn't work. Ask. So I think your confidence and your courageousness increases with the intensity with which you want something.
Hmm.
So if you really want something, you're probably going to try for it. I would just say, do the math. If you're not going to lose something like your life or your freedom or your livelihood, ask yourself, what's the worst that could happen?
Hmm. That's good. What's the worst that can happen, guys? Take a shot. I love the quote. I used to keep this on my board at work. You miss 100% of the shots you don't take. And as a former athlete, I mean, come on, be that selfish point guard.
I mean,
Take
and
the shot. Be Russell Westbrook.
Yeah, even if you're not an athlete, you could look at the lottery, right? You can't win if you don't play.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And so, wow, so much to I have a few more questions. Bear with me. Almost done. I lost my train of thought. Investing. So when it comes to, you're an investor, right? So you're not just thinking short term. And I would say, would I be right to say that you're a value investor?
Oh no, I'm not a value investor.
Oh
Please.
no, really?
No, please don't talk about me like that. That's an insult. No,
So
John Rogers is a value investor, so I'm just teasing. So a
yeah.
value investor is somebody who's trying to buy something that is very inexpensive, hoping that it will eventually get to the price that it should be. I'm a growth investor.
Okay.
And I'm a private equity angel investor, which means I live for stories. Tell me a good story and I will buy into it. Tell me what your dreams are. Tell me what you're thinking about doing. Tell me how you're going to get there. And I'm probably going to, if you make a good enough case, if you sell me on it, I'm with you. So I'm a growth investor. So I want to hear.
Okay, so this is good. As a
Yeah.
growth investor then, so
Yeah.
your time horizon, which is, the time that you expect to get a return on your investment, is how long?
So my investment philosophy is 10 years.
Okay. I would say that's like, well, okay. You know far more than me. So 10 years, right?
Yeah.
So as we're looking at the next 10 years, right, what are the growth opportunities, whether it's industry or skills, jobs that you would want your, us nephews and nieces of yours to be looking at?
Yeah. So I think the biggest growth industry is going to be health. You could also say wellness, right? Because if you think about 9/11, before 9/11, you could walk straight out to the gate and kiss your aunts and uncles goodbye before they walked out.
Yeah.
Wave goodbye. Well, here, 20 years later, you don't even think about TSA or TSA Pre or global entry. We have a whole infrastructure around physical safety for getting on an airplane. We're going to have the same thing about physical safety with regard to health. So at some point, you may find yourself going to the airport and you'll give them a card, and that card will have your vital signs, your health, the last time you were sick, and your temperature. And they'll go, oh, okay, you can come through the fast lane. If you don't have all that, they'll point something at your forehead and take your temperature and go, 99.7, you can't go. So I think health is going to be a big thing. Communication is certainly a big thing. Entertainment is a big thing. I do executive coaching. And I think that there will not be a way to automate coaching, counseling, therapists, human interaction things. In New York, particularly, you'll find a lot of people have understood the value of having somebody that they pay to sit down and talk to and think with. Psychotherapist, therapist, a colleague, a coach, a mentor, that human interaction in a world of technology is not going to go away, and it would become more and more valuable. So on a personal level, I think career-wise, any kind of counseling, support, advice, teaching, coaching is going to be big. And in investing, it's going to go more toward, in the near term, healthcare. Now, here's my wild idea. The long term is going to be space travel. So Virgin
Long
Atlantic,
term being greater than 10 years?
like right at 10 years.
Wow.
Right? So I think 10 years from now,
Yeah.
if we finish this interview and I say, I've got a meeting in Frankfurt 5 hours from now, I'll be able to do that because I'll go and hop on some plane at O'Hare that's going to go up into the stratosphere and come back down in 3 or 4 hours. So space, health, right, there you go. Space, health, and humans. Those are the 3 things you got to think about.
Space, health, and humans.
Right.
This has been great. So here's my last question. I love to end with this.
Okay.
So music is such a powerful tool to bring people together.
Yeah.
What are the top 3 songs, or what would be the top 3 songs on your just crushing COVID playlist, about to take over the world, about to build Black wealth for your children's children? What's the top 3 songs?
Well, I can't, it's going to be Kiss by Prince, number 1.
Okay.
It's going to be How Come You Don't Call Me Anymore by Alicia Keys. And it's going to be Freak Like I Do by Crystal Method.
Let's go. And why?
The beat. And I love Alicia, right? So, and Prince was born the same day I was. And I think that's the first album I ever bought. So those 3, old, beautiful, and wild new music.
I love it.
Let that just rotate through all the time while I'm working.
Well, thank you so much, Mr. Wilkins, for your time. Is there any way that the Student Dream community can support you and just, be of help to you? Because you've really just blessed us.
So I lost one friend in COVID this year. My ace Booney, but he lived a great life, and we celebrate him. Yeah. But he told me something the last time I saw him, and he said, Tony, you know what? The good you do is not for people. It is a gift to the universe, and it comes back to you in ways that you can't imagine. And when he told me that, I just went, that's why we're boys, because you come out with stuff like that. So I would say that the one thing that the people listening to this podcast can do is be helpful to somebody else for no reason whatsoever. And it will come back to all of us in ways that we can't imagine.
All right. Well, that is the end of that, you guys. Be helpful to somebody else, and it will come back to you in ways that you couldn't even imagine. And as I always close all of our talks with, talk is cheap, talk is broke, and time is money. So get started today. There's so much for you to implement today, right now. Right in the comments section. What are 3 steps you're going to take as a result of listening to this? And again, if you have found this interview to be helpful at all, just hit that like button, share it with a friend. That is being helpful. All right, guys. So let's get it. You can do this. I'm rooting for you. Yeah. Bye-bye.